What's the most badass thing you've accidentally said in the heat of the moment? Big burly former Marine/mercenary from Iraq was back stateside, huge peep mountain of a man. We came to face each other in one of the narrow corridors of the office where one of us was gonna have to turn sideways. Neither of us turned, but we stopped. I'm 6 feet 1 inch 260 and he still towered over me. He was a nice guy, but still a little conditioned, I guess you could say, or mentally unhinged. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You feeling froggy?" It truly was like something out of a movie. Without blinking I replied, "You better jump." We both cracked up and turned sideways, while the office breathed a collective sigh of relief. I am a 4th grade teacher and one day I was up at the board and struggling to remember how to spell a particular word. I was trying to make light of it, telling the kids that sometimes adults need help with spelling too. One student replied, "It is because you were poorly educated." But don't worry, we are poorly educated too. Double whammy. What's worse is I think that kid was trying to make you feel better. At work, project management undercut and mismanaged a project so badly. They pushed getting minimum viable product out with the goal to roll out improvements later. Product released, they all patted themselves on the back and moved on. Then that minimum viable product broke. In a meeting we had with our directors about how it's so broken and the cost to fix it, etc., no cost too big, unlimited manpower, etc., I asked how come we couldn't afford to do it right, but we can afford to do it twice. Do you work for Bethesda? I'll never forget the moment a family walked into the local pub I was working at while I was working. This big king of the grill bald alpha patriarch dad type and his wife and kids came through. I said, "Welcome, where would you like to sit?" And he snapped back, "Well, a table would be nice," and without missing a beat at all I replied, "Actually we usually sit on the chairs here." I'll never forget the satisfaction of that moment or the look on his face. You are the alpha dad now. I worked in cell phone sales for a few years and a woman came in with a fairly new flip phone. This was 2018, we just still sold them. She was complaining cause one of the sides of the screen was dangling off and said she didn't do anything, it just snapped, and demanded a new phone. I told her that looks like physical damage and we don't have any coverage for that since you didn't buy a phone protection warranty. She insisted it wasn't physical damage and the phone just sucks and broke itself. She started freaking out and calling me all kinds of names and swinging her phone in my face, and then the top half of the phone literally snapped off and landed on the counter in front of me. I just looked her in the eyes and said, "Well, that was definitely physical damage." She lost her shit at my comment and it was weirdly satisfying. When I was 12, my older sister had a boy over for Thanksgiving dinner. She dated lots of douches, but this guy took the cake. Big, brash, annoying dickhead who was rude to her and basically everyone. As we sat down for dinner, before we were about to say what we were thankful for, he says inaudible moron grunts, "Huh, looks like I'm seated at the head of the table, must be important," with a huge shit-eating grin. Without pausing I gestured to my dad seated opposite him and said, "Actually my dad is at the head of the table, you're the asshole." My mom scolded me for swearing at the table but years later told me her and my dad thought it was hilarious. After 4 years in an abusive relationship and 1 year of an abusive marriage, I told my ex that I wanted a divorce. He told he that I couldn't divorce him or I'd go to hell. My response was, "Well, I guess I'll see you there." I then kicked him out of my house, for which he had never paid a dime in bills, and told him to call his mom for a plane ticket. Not the most badass story here, but it felt good. I was around 17 or 18 and getting my first filling at the dentist. They pumped me up with nitrous oxide for pain and to help me relax during the procedure. Dentist came back and asked me, "How are you feeling?" All I said was I don't, and he lost his shit and cracked up for what seemed like 20 minutes before he could pull himself together. I also started cracking up because of the laughing gas and his laugh was infectious. So we were both just sitting in the room laughing and all his assistants came by and were very confused, lol. I had something similar, though far more disturbing, which has been kind of a theme in my life. I got super drunk when I was probably 25, got in a bar fight, as was my habit, and got knocked out cold, also a bad habit back in those days. Woke up in an emergency room to a cop who said, "It's 4:30 a.m., you're in so-and-so emergency room, you just blew a .29 BSE, so I have to take you to the detox center now. I stood up from the chair they had me in and the cop goes, "Hey, wait, are you okay to walk?" And I threw my arm around his shoulder and bellowed out, "Walk? Hell, I'm driving, let's go." He was not amused, and he got a little rough with me, but about half the emergency room staff completely lost it. Also, I eventually quit drinking and fighting, though it took about 10 more years of failures before I hit that point. Not me, my daughter. This boy at school called her retarded, her response? No, I'm autistic. I don't know what your peep excuse is. She was in 6th grade. I was pretty shocked when I got that phone call. She usually doesn't say things to people. Then, of course, you asked what happened to the other boy? I absolutely did. They said that he would be punished appropriately. They wouldn't tell me anything else. I'm a writer and I do a bit of stand-up comedy. As such, people tend to introduce me to new people as a comedian, writer, etc. So I was outside a bar smoking with a friend of a friend. He then introduced to one of his friends. His friend was dressed like Liam Gallagher from Oasis and seemed to exude a bit of a cocky, sneery manner. The introduction went thusly. Friend of friend, Mr. Gallagher, this is writer of wrongs, he's a comedian. Mr. Gallagher looks me up and down, comedian, eh? Does that mean you think you're funny? Writer of wrongs, no, it means everyone else does. I literally do not know where it came from. I didn't think about the response, it just came out. And it is hands down the greatest thing I've ever said. I was accused of being passive-aggressive. I replied, which part sounded passive? I don't ever want to come across as passive. My take on this is I'm aggressive. At work at a company meeting, someone was presenting something cool they volunteered to work on and finished. They then explained things they thought they could do better in a self-deprecating way, and a bunch of other people started railing into his work with petty criticism. It was definitely good work, though, and a thought just hit me, so I blurted it out. Sometimes done is the best feature. A bunch of people laughed and then the criticism stopped. People gave him kudos and we moved on. Not really badass, but I was surprised this thought somehow came out fully formed, like it was some phrase I've been saying for decades. I guess I was just realizing how many people don't finish anything they start. So done suddenly seemed like a pretty damn good feature. Give the man some credit for finishing the damn thing. This is actually really inspirational. I'm a perfectionist and often hate stuff I work on so much I abandon it. I'm going to try and internalize this message.